12. It's about 5:33 because I missed the time. I'm calling the District Advisory Committee of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation to order. If I could ask us to each say our name and sub area, and we'll go around the room, and then for staff, if you could say your name too. And I'll start with, my name is Jeanette DeCastro. I'm currently chair and I'm from sub area 3 in the district. I'm gonna call him Mark.
Mark Elliott, sub area 2 and vice chair.
Sarah Gatimo, sub area 1.
Robert Bornefeld, representing sub area 1.
Lisa Baby, City of Milwaukee, which is sub area 5, and I had a text from Ally that she was ill, but she was gonna try to Zoom, so I don't know if she, oh yeah,
So
she's
she's up
on.
there, yeah.
Okay.
Joel Bergman, represent the community centers.
Paul Savis, board director.
Maureen Tom, sub area 4.
Anita Blackmar, sub area 2.
Dominic Cortinas, NCPRD Deputy Director.
Kia Selly, District Director.
Thank you, and that brings it back. We'll start on action items, which is approval of the DAC meeting summary from May 8th, 2024's meeting.
I move to approve the meeting summary.
Second.
I have a correction to note.
Oh, okay.
You could, if we approve with corrections, if we could add Mark's sub area. In the members present, very simple correction.
Oh, it's there.
It
Mark
is?
and Anita.
Oh.
Both sub area 2.
Scratch that. Moved and seconded.
Just like the Syrian Grover, sub area 1.
Yes, thank you.
Good catch.
And that takes us into item, with that approved, we'll go into the discussion agenda. Our first item I will discuss is our preferred DAC communication protocols. This one is to keep. How did you say it, Anita, to me when we had a conversation? The left hand knowing what the right hand is doing, and I really appreciated that. So the first one I'll remind is that we have an email address, dac@clackamas.us. So for all communications that come to all of the district advisory committee, goes to that email address. I recommend, and I should back up a second. If there's feedback on these items, we can discuss briefly. And then I will bring back something more written down if we need that. So DAC@clackamas.us. For subcommittee work, my strong recommendation is that we pick a note taker, someone to keep notes of what the work is. Requests for any DAC business, like if we need to request a room, request a park, significant amounts of staff time, and for our recruitment implementation team, the request there is to keep those running through the chair and the co-chair of the DAC. So that way we're all on the same page about those requests. To subcommittee reports, which is item 4 on our agenda. The idea or the intent there I had was to keep standing agenda items for brief updates for subcommittee work. But if there's a longer form presentation or sharing of information that a subcommittee would like to do, please send in the agenda item request form or ask for that time at the end of the meeting. So that way we can make sure it gets added to an agenda and discussed further. And with that, I'll ask if there's any questions or comments. Colin, Missouri?
I have, so the email for NC or the DAC@ncprd.com doesn't work very well. Sometimes you'll get SMTP email like bounce backs. I think if we're going to rely upon our email a little bit more, it should work properly. So sometimes you'll send an email bounce back, or you'll have to forward it. I know when I sent an email recently to I believe forwarded it to everyone, or it might have been Dominic, someone, I don't remember, I can
Okay.
look, but it's not reliable, so still an issue. It was an issue when I started, it's still an issue. That's it.
And you mentioned two addresses, ncprd.com and clackamas.us. Is there one
No,
That's-
all one.
preferred,
Oh, it's DAC@ncprd.com.
or she
Yeah,
also
we
said
should-
dac@clackamas.us,
Ah,
Yeah, there
which
was,
is what the rest of the county offices, that's there. So I don't know, what should we?
That
think?
was pure human error.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, ncprd.com.
Okay.
And I apologize. So I'm hearing that because of those challenges, it sounds like there's been workarounds with email lists and things. The purpose for me bringing the email up is that we want to make sure that we're handling public records appropriately and that DAC business is part of the public record. And that's what the email address allows for. Also, in terms of those public records requests, if someone would like to do a Freedom of Information Act, it isn't, I don't think strictly necessary for them to have all of our email addresses, right? Like, because we have a shared email address. So it sounds like there's some troubleshooting to think about. And if there is forwarding of email that happens, I think we'll rely on staff until that gets resolved. But continue to either send it to DAC at ncprda.com or carbon copy CC DAC at ncprd.com so that it's part of that email system. I'm gonna call on Kia and then come to Annika.
I just want to offer that we can work on the technology issue. Again, we thought, as staff, we thought it had been fixed. So we'll put another request into technology services of the county. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. I'm not sure exactly what is happening, but we'll
I'll look
address it.
for the email.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, that would be helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Just forward it to Jessica if you can, if not to
Okay.
me. And then we'll send that to TS, Technology Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
I guess I don't have a lot to add to that, but I know that Jessica has been heroic in working around this thing and getting the emails out to us by one way or another because of that issue. And I know that the county has worked on it over and over and over again, trying to resolve it and they haven't been able to figure it out. So, but I rely on that email anyway because Jessica makes it work.
Thank you. Director Savas.
Yeah, I can attest that Siri's brought this up for a long time,
Yeah.
so I'm somewhat disappointed, not blaming anyone in the room, it's a technology issue. I'm somewhat surprised and disappointed that it's still a problem, so let's figure out, get to the bottom of it. We need a different email address. That is, maybe goes through the filter, because of security, cybersecurity issues. It's really tightened up, so it's made things really difficult. But I haven't used anything other than clackamas.us, so I don't know, maybe that might be the way out, but we'll find out. But let's, Kate, so you and I
I'll
touch
make-
base and make sure we get it done.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for those comments and we'll, oh, Grover, do you have a question?
No, I'd like to comment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I have a little concern in that for DAC business, for the good of the entire DAC, I think what you've recommended is great. But Missouri and I are both in the same sub area and we have communications that don't go through that whole loop. And then a number of us from different sub areas partner on projects as part of the implementation team, and that doesn't go through that whole group, which includes the current process to put together the recruitment and forming the nominating committees and having people there present for that, et cetera. And so that also doesn't go through that same loop from my point of view. And so I heard what you said, and that squashes my point of view, not like you intended to, but it says that my point of view is out of line, and I can't just accept that.
Oh, I think that we can bring that into alignment. So my direct response is that when subcommittees or an implementation team is doing their work, they're coming to a DAC meeting and making a report about their sub-area work, subcommittee work,
Correct,
or implementation team work.
correct, but we have communication that's not through DAC.com, that's all, that was the only part I wanted to be clear about. There's
And
lots
my-
of communication that's not through DAC.com,
My
NCPRD. whatever.
interpretation is that iterative work
Mhm.
is important work, but really the crux of what the record is, or what's on the record is what's discussed in the meeting,
Correct.
right?
So if it's about specific agenda items and what the discussion is about that, I agree with you. But DAC at ncprd.com is not the place for Ms. Surya or I or myself and Anita putting together the work that we put in as part of the implementation team. So all that doesn't go through there, and I didn't hear that that's distinction, so I wanted to clearly make that distinction. It isn't all through the DAC.
I think we said the same thing.
Okay.
Because, but let's just make sure we understood each other, that correspondence to the whole committee goes through the DAC email, the shared email.
Right.
That subcommittee work, I'm asking for folks to pick a note taker if that's appropriate. And also that there will be reports back at the public meeting.
Okay. The only distinction I want to make is the implementation team is not part of the DAC. It is residents of the area working to represent themselves as taxpayers, as people who have interests, et cetera. And they need to be organized, and that's what part of the reason that we have the whole policy process that we have to do the outreach, because 3 years ago, there were no links outside of the DAB. And then we started with the process with our policy and procedures that amend or follow the guidelines of the bylaws. We started the process of having the implementation team do the work to generate the participation, to have the nominating committees to make recommendations that would then forward to the county board to be appointed as DAC members. But all that other work is not DAC work. That's the part I want to be clear, and I don't hear that distinction in the way you describe it. So I don't need to go on and on, but I just want to be clear, the implementation team does not report to the DAC, which is what I heard you say.
So this topic is on communication protocols for the DAC. And what I'm hearing from you is that the implementation team is not part of the DAC.
Correct.
That's different from my understanding.
Okay.
So I would like to ask some follow-up questions outside of this meeting.
Sure. I invite you to read the massive 30-page, no, not 20-page, no, the 9-page document that is currently board approved, which is the policies that go along with what's in the bylaws. And the bylaws spell it out completely, and it says there will be a nominating committee, and this talks about how that nominating committee is generated, recruited, et cetera, and how we'll begin to try to recapture our capacity to have enough representation in the broader NCPRD sub areas, so that if and when, with no permission yet from staff or from county commissioners or board, is that we're looking forward to what it will take to be able to have the muscle, the involvement, the support to be able to form an independent district. And that is not a DAC effort yet adopted by the DAC. It's being studied by a subcommittee, but that is something that stands alone as city residents, as sub-area residents and taxpayers. That's where that all comes from. If we want to change our representation, we love the board of directors. They have too much on their plates to be able to do this, so we need to find a different representation.
So
They're all
for
tied together.
pausing, you and I have done a couple direct responses. So unfortunately, that's boring for the rest of folks. I'm gonna go to Mayor Beatty and then Director Savas, and then leave it where I left it, which is if I have outstanding questions, then I'll find answers to them.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it sounds like you're gonna have that conversation, but I do have the same question is what's an implementation team? And what is its relationship? I mean, if it's about the process for selecting members, selecting new DAs, recruiting and selecting, I've watched that meeting, I've read up on that, I understand that, but in other realms, what is an implementation team doing? It sounds like, I mean, there are a lot of people on this committee who are active in other ways, independent of this committee, advocating for the library, for example, and et cetera. And that's great, that's their outside, it has no intersection with DAC. But if there's people, I guess I would like a better understanding of what this implementation team, when we come to the next meeting is as well. Thanks.
Noted, thank you.
It might be, you know, I know it's changed a lot, but we had way back, legal counsel came and gave their interpretation of how and what you ought to do for guidelines and protocols. And maybe that should be done again, just to bring it up to speed. Let's make sure it's functional. I do know the other issue, well, the principle is transparency and public records. People should know what their either elected or appointed representatives are doing. So a quorum of this group is essentially shouldn't be discussing one another without being in public business and public light. Even if you email and you're discussing something by email and it's more than a quorum, technically, you're supposed to be doing it in this room, at, you know, at a publicly noticed meeting. So that's the intention. So, but there again, I am not a lawyer, and but I've been, we'll say chided, but I've been taught how and what to do. So what is the address? Is it DAC at NCPRD.com? Is that what it is? Well, I was just gonna test because I've never used it. And I don't communicate with you all on NCPRD business.
Thank you. So I'll call on Mark and then Anita.
So I think the good discussion about the role of the information team. I think our intent in the next couple of months is to, our meaning Jeanette and myself, is to have a robust discussion about the bylaws in which the entirety of what the implementation team means and what it is will exist in that document. And we've had conversations with county council, and they have told us certain things that I want to confirm with him about which governs bylaws or the 9-page policy document. So I'm hoping to get clarification from him again. And I think we might have him here one of these meetings, not both, but probably.
Thank you. Anita?
I'm not sure this is a good idea, but I was thinking that it would be nice maybe to have a subcommittee that looks at the bylaw revision. We're supposed to revisit bylaws every once in a while anyway. And we want to look into alternates, and also at the same time, see how the bylaws mesh with that policy document, the guiding principle document, and just give it a refresh and not just have a couple people do it, but several people, at least 3 or 4. And I'd like to be on that committee if we have such a subcommittee.
Mark?
So the committee does exist and you and Grover are on it.
That was easy.
Okay, already there. Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to the next item, which is trolley trail signage. Believe. Yeah, are you present? Oh, sorry, Alex is presenting.
So Alex Gilbertson is presenting, and I just want to introduce this by, again, reminding everybody that the genesis of this project, which actually hasn't been on our project list, but the genesis of this project really came from the Friends of the Trolley Trail, headed by Thelma. And they shared some concerns about user etiquette and speed specifically on the trolley trail. And since we did not have resources allocated, we meaning actually Alex, investigated whether there are some partnership opportunities out there for funding as well as design expertise. And the good news is that Alex was able to find a partner. Metro stepped forward and provided both the funding to fabricate the signs as well as the funding to design the signs.
Nice.
The catch has been, though, that the money has to be spent by June 30th. So you might remember at our last meeting, I asked you all for a little bit of grace in because I knew that we would have some bumps in the road because we were moving this forward so quickly. And so the good news is we now actually have signs. I won't steal Alex's thunder. She's going to share those final designs with you and she can talk about the implementation. But just know that we still have a few things to iron out for the next iteration of these signs for another segment of the trail. So thank you.
Yes. Excuse me. Hi, everybody. Alex Gilbertson, I use she, her pronouns. We sent an email to you all a couple weeks ago announcing this mini project, and I just wanted to provide a brief in-person presentation for what that email was all about. So as Kia had mentioned, we're rolling out a small scale safety campaign for the trolley trail. Back in 2023, we contracted with Ulta Planning and Design to develop a safety audit. That safety audit basically looked at 6 miles of trail from Milwaukee Bay Park all the way to Glen Echo Avenue in Gladstone. And looking at safety issues along that corridor. As part of that safety audit, there was a toolkit of potential improvements or solutions that we could roll out. A safety campaign being one of those things. And so up on the screen is basically the recommendation for the safety campaign that we used as a guidepost to develop these signs. To promote key safety messages, to encourage trail users to share the path and maintain a safe and comfortable experience for everybody. And then the second recommendation is to place safety messages along sections where trail conflicts are observed or reported. So as Kia mentioned, we're very excited to announce that we were able to partner with Metro and the Intertwine Alliance to design these signs that are going to be integrated into their regional trail signage guidelines. So what that means is these signs, so they're going to be piloted on the trolley trail. The trolley trail gets to be the first project to install these signs. But integrating them into the trail guidelines means that whether you're on the trolley trail or way over on the West Side Trail, there's going to be the same consistent signage throughout the region. So that means Washington County, Multnomah County, and Clackamas County. So what you see are the final signs on the screen. Again, we're asking for a little bit of grace. We had to move swiftly and quickly through this process. But essentially, these signs were designed followed closely to a safety campaign that the city of Eugene rolled out a few years ago. And so these sort of follow that theme, if you will. But they're in the Intertwine Alliance signage standards. So the colors, the fonts, all of that align with all of the trail signage that you see around the region. Let's see what else. So we met with the Friends of the Trolley Trail to preview these designs before we hit fabrication. And the conversation that we had was very productive and worthwhile. I see Grover nodding his head. He was in that meeting. And so that being said, I did want to put a huge shout out, thank you to Metro for fabricating the signs. We should have them in hand in the next week or two. And a big shout out to Kevin Kaysen and his crew for installing the signs when we get them. In July, we will have basically 12 signs, 2 signs for every mile of the 6 mile trail is what we're gonna start out with. And so, yeah, it's exciting and really happy that this all kind of came together. I will say that the Friends group wants this to just be, the start of a future plan for what we can do in the future. And also sort of acknowledging that we are short on funding and resources, and the NCPRD will need to look for outside funding opportunities, if we need to do a more larger scale, effort in the future. But we did agree to, revisiting this topic in 6 months to get an idea or sense to see if this has changed user behavior. If it's effective, if it's not effective, we want to know why, and sort of ask a lot of those questions essentially. But I'll just end it with, so these are the final signs. Be on the lookout for these in July on the trolley trail, and then eventually you'll see them around the region.
Plan work.
So are there 12 of these or 12 signs that are made up?
So there's 6 signs, and we will be having 2 of each sign, so it'll be like a sign in one direction, a sign in the other direction, so that you can see it, no matter which way you're headed.
And is there, that you know of a process to report back to Metro about what our outcomes are that might affect future development of the sign?
Yeah, definitely. I've been working with their trails planner, Robert Spurlock, very closely through this process, and we will be in contact and communication throughout the process. Hopefully they can attend this check back in meeting in 6 months and yeah, be involved in the communication about what we heard, lessons learned, et cetera.
Is there a specification, a requirement for how far away the metal post of the sign is from the trail itself?
So in their safety guidelines, I believe there is like 2 foot off of the shoulder, you know.
Okay, just gonna tell you, you know, a friend of my son's, was involved in a while back, situation where he was riding his bike, distracted, operating a cell phone, and swerved a little bit, and the handlebar hit a post, signpost, in which immediately, as you can imagine, would make the bike go this way and flip over. So this morning, I happened to see someone in Oregon City who was operating a cell phone, texting while he riding his bike and swerving in Oregon City, and actually crossed into the opposite traffic. Didn't get hit, but it came close. So I did look it up today, this afternoon, knowing this is going to be partly on the agenda, only to say that there's a recent ORS that basically applies to bicycles, even though it's designed for vehicles, but it applies to bicycles, that distracted driving is illegal. And so operating a cell phone, whether you're talking or whether you're texting on a bicycle, is still, it violates the statute. But I'm just concerned about that, just so you know, so I don't. And there's not, and maybe a second phase, like 6 months, could look, examine it and be electronic signs possibly that can measure someone's speed. There's not a speed limit with this package, right?
There is not a speed limit with this package.
Okay.
Mayor Beatty.
Well, I like Commissioner Savis's point about distracted riding. I mean, that is something that isn't captured there, but otherwise I love these signs. I think they're great. I look forward to seeing them on the Springwater and elsewhere. I just wondered if anyone from NCPRD participated in the Active Transportation Summit last week in Portland. No. I saw somebody's Facebook post from there, and you know, all I got was a couple pages that like a slide from a Facebook post. But apparently part of the discussion there was about speed limits and actually producing like speed limits that can be integrated into the vehicle so that the vehicle cannot exceed a certain speed limit. And I guess that is a question that cities and counties everywhere are grappling with. So I'm curious. I want to learn more about what was said there last week, and I just thought maybe somebody knew. But
Can we call an Ally on Zoom?
Yeah, will there be translated materials, is what she was asking.
Not in this first phase. We grappled with that idea, knowing that we wouldn't be able to translate these signs in 7 different languages. And so we really wanted to blow up the pictogram, the image, as large as possible so that hopefully that could display the intent of the sign with the words being sort of secondary. And so in this first phase, it's English.
Director Savage.
Thank you, Chair. So on the topic of speed, we are continuing to have these discussions internally, and I will add that today I was at a regional directors meeting that was hosted by the Intertwine Alliance, and we are having discussions about possibly putting together a panel discussion with people who are really expert in the field about trail use and this topic of electric bikes and electric scooters and people who are just very fast on their bicycles. And really have a discussion about what really are the tools that we should be using when we don't have rangers and other types of enforcement on the trail. So the intent here and what we're hearing currently from the experts in the field is that encouraging the right behaviors is the way to deal with that, really positive behaviors. And that we are also hearing that speeds may not actually be a problem. It's just that when speed is a problem, that that there is actually a pretty significant consequence when there's a conflict, if that makes sense. So it doesn't happen very often, but there's a significant consequence during those rare occurrences. So my point is, we are going to have some discussions regionally about this because it's of interest to a lot of Parks and Recreation associations. So stay tuned.
And now, can I piggyback on that a
Yeah.
little bit? Is that okay? I do also want to mention that because Metro was providing the signage, they wanted a one-size-fits-all approach because not every one of the 27 different jurisdictions that are managing these trails has the same standards for setting speed limits or not. So we did not provide speed limit signage at this time, just because we weren't able to get all 27 different jurisdictions together to agree on an approach.
Thank you. Calling on Grover?
Yes, thanks. In our trolley trail, Friends of the Trail Side meeting, there was a lot of discussion about, in 2 of these signs, the middle 2 up and down. It says yield to pedestrians, and at bottom it says go slow, and it says when others are present, and yield to pedestrians is slower traffic. So on the road, a yield sign is a yield sign. And if you violate, if you hurt somebody, if something happens and it was a yield sign, there's no doubt about it whose fault. So that was the high point for me about this sign. And then the other part that came up as a hiccup to that is the stop signs, because in the city of Portland, on the public highway, a bicyclist is allowed to roll through a stop sign as long as they assume they're yielding. And to put stop signs on our trolley trail is counterproductive, and yield is for me the highest. So I just want to get that into the room. So setting a speed, there's nobody ever gonna enforce it. But making it clear who's responsible, yield. So one of those 28-mile-an-hour, what they call them, spandex wearing bicyclists, they hit somebody, they are clearly in the wrong.
Colin Mystery?
Regarding multiple languages, this is already said and done, so QR codes couldn't be attached to where we could, okay,
So
so
stick them on.
that could be an option. I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
For translation into other languages.
Yeah.
Then, to start, or to kind of continue where Grover's going. Speed limits, I don't know, if I ever am allowed to vocalize a vote towards that, I think that's a little ridiculous, like, what's next? No wheelies on bicycles, no stoppies, no skids, like, now where can someone be a hooligan? I'm done.
And with that, I will move us to subcommittee reports. We have about 25 minutes, but we've eaten a little bit into that time, so I'm hoping we can keep it within 6:25, just keep us moving. So right now we have item A is asking our implementation team to report back on the recruitment meeting. And then the second one is the DAC public planning list parking lot that was included in the packet. And I'll discuss that further when we get to that. So, Auditor Grover, would you like to give us a summary?
Sure, I'll do a little, you can do a little, Grover. We had marvelous support. I want to get that out there first from staff, especially Dominic and Melina and Aaron, of course. And Jessica. I mean, really great support leading up to it and the night of. And we had I think a marvelous event, but we had very low attendance. So one thing was really great, another thing was a mystery and something that we have to redesign or, you know, reconsider how to get the engagement. But we did get some great news. Possible DAC members, provided they are approved by the board of directors. And we had all ages here. It was nice. So, Grover, you want to add to that?
I do. So actually in the kudos department, I want to specifically acknowledge Maureen.
Oh, absolutely.
Because she had a candidate in attendance with his lovely wife, and they were great people, and they participated in the conversation, etc. And their comment was, we were out walking our dog, and Maureen came up to us. And so good for you, good for you, good for you.
Yeah, no, they're really nice neighbors. They own a home. They're young. It's their first time homeowner for them.
Yeah.
And just every time I engaged with them, they shared their volunteering with other watershed Johnson Creek projects because there's so many of them and we love Johnson Creek. And the work that people do for free there is extraordinary as far as cleaning up things. And I just thought he was perfect and I really hope that you approve his application. And I look forward to supporting him in any way I can. And continuing to dabble as a citizen with you guys. And I'm not ready to cut the cord completely. So and I look forward to hearing new things and if indeed alternates become part of the agenda, I would certainly consider that because I think things happen in life and having someone who might readily be stepping in and staying engaged throughout the time could be important and valuable. So count me in.
Great.
Thank you so much for the last 3 years with you guys. I really appreciate it.
So that was the kudos. I definitely wanted to get there and thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I know that it was a long process to get out there and do that. So, but it is, I do want to speak to, that was our lowest attendance of any cycle that we've done this process. And I want to echo the support of Melina. You guys did a phenomenal job. Was it everywhere? Yes, it was. Did we get the result? So I'm a believer in, I have years of training in continuous process improvement. So that we need to incrementally look at what we learned from that, what could work. Because we had a lot of candidates, but only 3, me being one of them, actually showed up and were there to be voted upon. So that's, we have to figure out what worked and didn't work on that. So some examination. But to alter that to in the bylaws, the alternative, if we don't do nominating committees, it'll be a committee of 2 from here and 2 from there and 2 from wherever, and they get to decide. And that's how I got on the DAB in the first place, was a process like that. It does nothing to expand the growth, like you were just talking about, having more people be able to participate. The idea of returning to what it says, won't read you the whole thing, I won't even read you any of it, but the ballot measure that started this district clearly says there will be in each neighborhood a representative group, and we don't have that. So we're working to fulfill what the voters voted for, what they were promised, and they're not currently getting. And I want to keep this in the context, again, without DAC, board of directors and without staff, because they haven't yet pulled the trigger or said yes, haven't crossed that line. But the rest of us, I'm very committed to having us have an independent district. And to do that, we have to have a broader reach of people who would come to a meeting, one, and or would be willing to support changing the process, one, and two, you gotta know what's gonna go on with it, is they're gonna be asking for more from them financially. And so for us to be able to ask people for more financially, in today's world, they gotta see there's more bang getting there, more what they want, there's a reason to do that, and that's what this is designed to build. So I just clearly want to focus on using a continuous improvement process to keep improving it. And our data points on this one is, whatever we did this time, whatever circumstances there were, we were not able to meet the data of what we've done before. And I look forward to actually being able to see what our results were, because those are currently not available to me, and I don't know when that'll come up. It's not available to the implementation team or any of us. So I don't even know how many people were here. I could guess, but I don't know how many people were here, so I can't report that.
Thank you for that report. So I was in attendance as well on June 5th. I want to say a big thank you to the implementation team. It was a very cozy event. It was very welcoming. There was a chance for people to speak and meet each other. So I thought that was very community oriented. Some questions that came to me, unfortunately, in hindsight, and not, I wish it was foresight, was, did our applicants know that they were being asked to attend the June 5th meeting? Were those instructions provided? And sometimes, you know, busy folks like myself, I might be telling on myself, they sometimes need to be reminded, especially when it comes to things like meetings. So I really appreciate your continual improvement. I thought it was a great event, and it was also on a very beautiful day. Calling on Grover, thank you.
Yeah, just as a quick point, this is a copy of the email that Jessica sent out on May 21st to as a candidate. So that's the only reason I know this exists. And it was great. It talked about it, explained, need to be there. Challenge in my continuous improvement options is, this was on May 21st. A reminder version of this on June 5th, or there was a meeting on, on June 4th would have been a good idea to remind people. So just a nudge would have probably helped those who just plain forgot. It was a great letter and I appreciate it, and I actually thank Jessica in reply to that. So but I just wanted to make sure that was clear and understood.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll go to our next topic under discussion, which is the subcommittee. We're on subcommittee. The public planning list / parking lot. Dominic, could you bring it up on the shared screen, please? And I'll talk a little bit while he's able to do that. So this. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So the list predated my time on the DAC. And the whole reason for a subcommittee to look at this was to say, are these things we should revisit? Can we call them done? Can we put them in the done pile? I did a preliminary crack at it, meaning I wanted to bring it to the DAC last month, but we didn't have enough time to go through it. But what I'd like to do is if it's in your packet, we can kind of go through it item by item. And if you disagree, or you say, hey, I'd like us to do something different, you know, I'm open to that. So, unfortunately, it's 5 pages. It's 6. It's very long. We'll just kind of do our best to move through this quickly. We have until about 6:25 for the agenda. Okay. So our first agenda item was the Milwaukee Bay, and I asked us to remove this. We'll get updates on that periodically. Concord update. I asked to retain that. It's in active construction. SDC methodology update. I asked to retain that on our list until a later time when the board of directors makes a decision on the methodology. Right now, it's my understanding that's on pause. The NCPRD funding update. I wrote that that is ongoing, something that we do vis-a-vis our discussion with the budget committee. Pausing there, Grover, yes?
Yeah,
Wait.
I'd like, I don't know how effective, I appreciate it. I truly appreciate the work that's gone into this. However, I don't think we've talked about the source of where this document came from and what its intended purpose was. The very first DAC meeting ever to set the agenda, this is something that came up in the agenda setting meeting, that we do this, and then it was covered in the first DAC meeting that we had 3 years ago. And the purpose of this was to be able to have input that comes in, be captured in such a way that it could be utilized as opposed to resubmitted under referring to the budget requests and the budget. No, these have already been submitted, and how do they fit into that timeline? And to go through item by item and say, this is in, this is out, I don't think quite accomplishes it, and I don't know if it's a good use of time. So that's where I am. I think it is failing to speak to what the purpose of this document is. This is, in truth, it is a input planning progress tracking system. That's fancy words, but it is to track the input that's come in already and what's happening with it.
Direct question. What was the methodology to indicate things were done on this list?
We didn't design how it got done. That was not, so I suggest there's a lot of flaws, and I've made multiple suggestions a long time ago. There was a phenomenal system set up by the planning department that sorted all their input based on what their criteria of fulfillment are, and put into there when it came in, what the next steps are and its utilization, and it's done. But if not, if you all remember back a few months ago when Heather was doing the updates and stuff, she had the charts and to show the calendar of where things were. That was the idea that was used by the planning department, and that was the idea that could have been used for this. So it cycles its way out, it's done, it's complete, or it's not, as opposed to in, out, whatever, and resubmit, because on too many of these, you're asking people to resubmit a budget thing, or resubmit. These were already submitted and they should be, I don't want to worry about them in the moment, but the process needs to be such that it will track stuff that comes in some sort of order of where it fits into the bailiwick. So that's all I wanted to get to.
Okay,
This was what got put together and put on the shelf months ago, years ago. So it has not been carried forward. You can look at the dates on it.
okay, I'll call on myself. I have two direct concerns that because this list was not maintained, I cannot tell what is continuous business, new business, or old business, or there's a resolution. The other concern I have about this list, the way it stands, is to me, hot take, it makes it look like the DAC didn't get things done.
That's a good response.
That's not a good look. So I think there are things in here that did get resolved.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you're saying, that maybe doing it in this format is not as productive as you'd like. My next suggestion would be to approach this asynchronously. When you, and perhaps others who predated my time with the DAC could give that feedback about what can we call done. That's really the crux of what I'm looking for. There are going to be continual issues, which is part of what the staff report addresses and the budget committee addresses and so on and so forth, that are part of our normal operations. And that's right and good. So I'm, really looking for what's an actionable list I can work with.
Yeah, and my response is, I suggested not a list, but a process, because it needs to be something that has a way to flow and fall into its appropriate categories, etc. And like I said, it already did exist, was online, available for anybody to look at for the planning department years ago. And that came up in the meeting in July or August of 3 years ago. That's when this, and this is what it got done to, but to just now sort that in, out, there should have been a subcommittee or something to do that as opposed to have that fall on your shoulders solely. That's, you got enough on your plate.
Well, that sounds familiar to other feedback I got. Calling on Kia.
Thank you. So not every item is represented in the division report, but you'll see in the division report that you receive each month that in the planning and development section, there's a table at the end. And that lists all of the current planning and development projects, if you will, both that are active as well as soon to start, I'd like to say. So in the near term, and those are projects that are staffed. And so even the projects that have yet to begin, we anticipate staffing those projects on the timetable that's actually documented on that table. So not everything here is on that table. So I can work with Jeanette or whoever else is going to take this on from the DAC to clean up or update this list. I'm happy to do that. But I would say the first task would be to look at that table at the end of the Planning Development Division report, because that is the most current list of what we're working on and going to start. And many of the things on that list are on there too. A few though are missing.
Yes.
So there are 3 different list formats. It looks like maybe different people started different lists or something, but the third one appears to be all things that are considered closed, done. So, I mean, if there are things that have been done, maybe they can all be moved to that third list and clean it up that way without too much controversy over that. And then I like, Kia's suggestion to get the staff's input. I guess, yeah, I'm not quite sure what we do with the rest of this list. I do have some concerns about taking Milwaukee Bay Park off the list, though.
Well, from the chair seat, I'll say that the naming question is a very important one I'd like to elevate on the list. I think that is something that we really do need to talk about in a meeting. I think that will be a better use of our time, certainly. So I'm hearing the feedback and I want to take action on that feedback to pause the discussion now and get staff support on next steps. Calling on Grover briefly.
And I agree with you, and thank you for that, and thank you, Kia, for that offer. The other thing I want to make a distinction is the input part doesn't always get to be staffed. So that wasn't included in what you said, but if somebody sends into dac@ncprd.com a suggestion, they want something or whatever, that it isn't just lost in the ozone. That's the stuff before it's staffed. It needs to live somewhere, and then it either gets staffed, which would move into a different factor or function, or because it doesn't. I loved what parts of it planning had a few years ago, and I don't know what they have now, but I still have links to what they had then, and because it takes an input, and it maybe didn't go anywhere, but the person who had the input at least should get some feedback. Thank you for your suggestion or whatever, because we want to encourage people to, as opposed to just be frustrated and say, well, they don't listen anyway. That's where my focus is on. So thanks. And thank you for moving forward on that.
Okay, calling on Kia.
Thank you, Chair. So NCPRD definitely wants to hear from, we want to hear from district residents as to what you all want, what you think. The best process that we have right now that we actively use to develop our fiscal year 24-25 budget is the budget form. It's still online, and that actually, I use that in my capacity as planning development director, my previous position, to put together the budget, to basically carve out staff capacity to do projects and prioritize projects. So that's the best process that actually feeds into our budget process. So we could talk more about some process improvements around that budget form. Now is probably not the time, but I'm happy to have that conversation with future DAC.
Thanks.
Oh, Recommends Anita?
I would just have 3 or 4 things to say about that form, but I'll save it for later.
And my comment is also about that form. The form isn't, to my knowledge, only directly to the staff. It is actually, I thought, something to get things on the agenda for the DAC, who then can make recommendations to get things through the staff or to the board or whatnot, because our purpose is to be able to advise. And if it came in from there, it doesn't bypass the DAC. So that's the part I have a little concern. And so a conversation more about that would be helpful. It isn't directly into staff and staff decides. It somehow needs to be through here, or why are we here? Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to the next agenda topic, which is our DAC member reports. And call on you, Lisa, thank you.
I've got. That's okay. It'll be my last time to raise it for the meeting. I won't be able to do that. So I have a few announcements of things going on too this Saturday in parks in Milwaukee. Saturday, at 11 to 3 p.m. in Ball Michelle Park, which is just off of King Road on Stanley, is our Juneteenth event. And it will be preceded by a community bike ride at 10 a.m. If anybody wants to do that, just show up there with your bike. They're telling people show up around 9:45. It'll be a family-friendly ride. It'll come back, start there and come back there for the festivities. And also this Saturday is the third Saturday of the month. There's a group that works in the on Elk Rock Island every third Saturday of every month, although they will take off July and August. But they'll start up again in September. They are doing one of these bio blitz things using iNaturalist and setting people up to iNaturalist is an app for your phone. If you download the iNaturalist and you show up on Saturday, they will set you up for how to identify wildlife and help inventory wildlife on Elk Rock Island. And it's going to continue through the summer. So it's just something you can do whenever you're a visitor to Elk Rock Island to help create some inventory of what people are seeing out there. It's also a work party to pull ivy. So I want to say that. I want to be honest about that.
Tease with the good stuff and then.
That's right. And then coming up on July 13th, NCPRD is doing its concert in Milwaukee Bay Park. And that's a Tom Petty tribute band, which I hear is actually very good and usually has a high cover charge, so we get to see it for free. And that's preceded, as it has been the last couple of years, by the duck race over Kellogg Dam. That is an event of the Milwaukee Parks Foundation and the North Clackamas Watersheds Council. So putting on my hat as a board member of the Parks Foundation, we will be at the farmer's market this Saturday selling duck tickets. So if you want to get your duck, it's $5 a ticket. If your duck is the first, there's 300 ducks. If your duck crosses the finish line first, you win $150 cash, 100 or 50 for second and third. So come to the farmer's market on Saturday and buy your duck race tickets. And then finally, this is really only applies if anybody lives in Milwaukee. So it applies to Joel, and I don't know about where staff lives, but we banned fireworks last year, and we're gonna have a bunch of new fireworks prohibition signs for people to put in their yard. I'd hope to have them by today and be able to bring an example, but they're not back from the printer yet, but they will be early next week. And if anybody wants a lawn sign, I've got a little sign up sheet here if you live in Milwaukee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll call on Joel.
First of all, I wanted to just report that our Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board is full, like at capacity, which has been a while since we've had that. So that's pretty exciting. But a few things I wanted to bring up. The Milwaukee Community Center Foundation is putting on another Pride Bingo event on Sunday, June 30th, 4 p.m. This was wildly popular last summer. It's $60, and that includes bingo cards, appetizers, desserts. I think there's beer and wine for sale as well. I don't think this was necessarily in the report, but you can get tickets online through the Milwaukee Community Center Foundation website, or it's linked, I think, through Milwaukee Community Center website as well. An ongoing need for Meals on Wheels drivers, so if anyone wants to share that with their sub areas, that would be greatly appreciated. The Milwaukee Community Center is kind of the hub for this, but it serves everyone in our district. It's a vital service. I think they produce almost 300 meals a day, and they've got to get those out, and they need drivers for that. That's a morning kind of shift, but you can work in pairs. So please share that with people that may have some time. And finally, very exciting, on June 25th at 1 p.m., we're unveiling the mural that our board has diligently kind of pushed. Will be on the directionally, I think, the east side of, I might be wrong about that, of the center, but that's what everyone from the public is welcome. It's a really neat design. I'm pretty excited about that. So that's June 25th at 1 p.m. So please attend if you're able to. That's all I can think of.
Thank you, Grover.
Yes, thanks. So in those other things that one can do, I'm also on the library advisory board and my CPO. And out of that, 2 questions have come up that I don't know when else to ask them. So there is a request to know what the status of on March 28th of 2023, there was a process that would start the land transfer purchase, that the library sits on land that is owned by the library. And yeah, we've not heard anything in all these many months. And so there was a request for an update on that. I didn't have one, so I thought I'd ask here. And then the other issue was, we shared the issue around the finance projections that came out here. I was thrilled. I wish the library would do the same. That's a different issue, but having this, what are we doing to address this idea that we are nearly gonna run out of money, and where is our process and where does it go on our agenda? That came up from my community, but I also want to put it to us. When are we going to get that on the agenda to actually look at what the forecast called for and what we can do with it? So those are 2 things that reporting from my community. And then our community is having a picnic on the 17th of August, and more information to follow on the specifics. Thanks.
And reminder of your sub area.
Sub-area number 1,
No,
the southeast quadrant.
great, thank you. So I'll call myself for sub area 3. Not a lot to report from the park side. I did attend the budget committee presentation. And that went very smoothly. I was pleased. I got in on the tail end of it, and then I think I missed the good stuff, but was able to see the recording. So thank you to the budget committee for that work. And I wanted to also mention the Pride Bingo was really cool. I have a great picture of Poison Waters and my daughter from last summer. So yeah, it's stellar. That's all I had. You want to go, Martin?
I'm gonna speak about sub area 2, and Alma, to you, just add on, okay, correct me. First, I wanted to mention the Oak Grove Festival. Can you just sign the hold that right up to the camera? NCPRD is a partner with the Oak Grove Historic Downtown Oak Grove Group. I've been putting on the festival every year, and so it's occurring on Saturday, June 29th. As always, we try to improve things every year. So this year we have 10 musical acts this year, if you want that. We have 2 stages and groups, including Plante, if anyone's heard of the Latin jazz group, and Haley Johnson, who is a local, who was a finalist on America's Got Talent. So we'll have some very good entertainment, lots of food, and we have lots of sponsors, which is always a great thing to see. These are all businesses, which is awesome that our local businesses are showing an interest in what we do.
What are the hours for that? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite.
I'm sorry, yeah, you can't see that.
If you can have extra.
Yeah, it's from 11 to 4.
4, okay, I saw the 11. I couldn't see if it was 4 or 9.
And that would be amiss if I didn't tell you that I've heard from a few folks recently the desire for additional dog parks. So I think that'll be, you'll hear that in the community engagement with system.
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful segue to Director Kia for the district monthly report.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chair. So I'm going to start with some really good news. Last Thursday, the administration and representatives of NCPRD and the North Clackamas School District Board came to a tentative agreement on the terms of the sale of the Wichita Center property.
Very good.
And it's a tentative agreement because both boards, all members of each board were not present to ratify an agreement. So there will be a joint board meeting scheduled later this month to do that. So that's what we call it, a tentative agreement. I want to just be really clear, that doesn't mean that this is still up in the air. We are moving towards completion of this process. So we believe, this is the statement, we believe these terms meet the needs of both organizations, and more importantly will mean that we will be able to continue to offer valuable services to some of our most vulnerable members of the community at the Wichita Center without interruption. And I want to take this opportunity to just thank North Clackamas School District board members and members of the administration that showed up for that 4-hour negotiation. I want to thank Director Savas, Vice Chair West, Gary Schmidt, and Jeff Munns for participating as well. It was a very collaborative and very innovative, creative, and very productive and friendly negotiation. I was so impressed. So thank you. I also want to add that our directors and, well, I should say Director Savas and Vice Chair West did a really great job of really learning the needs of NCPRD and making sure that those needs were addressed in the deal. So thank you for all of that work. There were hours put into that deal. So thank you. And most importantly, a great move for the community. So
And they're gonna finalize it yet in June, or you mean
it will be
next?
fine. It will be finalized in June at a
Okay.
joint board meeting. We're working on the logistics of getting all of those people together in one room.
The meeting
So
hasn't been set, but it's supposed to be.
that's right. It will be announced next week, probably by end of day Tuesday.
Cool.
That reminds me that next Wednesday is Juneteenth. So all county offices, including NCPRD offices, will be closed. I know we'll have special hours here at the aquatic park. Candy, can you remind us as to what those hours are?
The aquatic park's open like 8 AM until 7 PM. I think we have swimming lessons and big surf swims, is all that we're really operating on Wednesday. Our full-time staff have a holiday. Milwaukee Community Center will be closed on Wednesday as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Some more good news, the NCPRD Budget Committee approved the fiscal year 24-25 budget on May 29th, excuse me. And actually I invite all of you, if you didn't watch that presentation, please watch it. We crafted that presentation, so it really hit all of the highlights of the budget. So if you want to learn the budget and get the cliff notes, that's a good thing to watch. And the budget will be adopted on June 20th. So thank you to the Budget Committee for their service to the NCPRD employees and the district residents.
Do you have the link for that and the time that it is? Because it's a lot of wandering to find.
I don't at offhand, but we can actually send that out
Perfect. Great.
to the DAC. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we all talked about the DAC recruitment and selection event that was held on June 5th at the aquatic park. Thank you to the implementation team and to staff. And next week, the board will consider those recommended candidates for their service. So stay tuned for that. The aquatic park turns 30 this year. And so we're going to have a celebration on June 15th with 2 big surf swims and complimentary Kona ice. Please register in advance. There are going to be 2 swim sessions, and I hear it typically gets packed pretty quickly. So I plan to be here for one of those and hope to see some of you there. We also have the annual pollinator event at Stringfield Park on June 22nd. Thank you to Kevin's team and other staff that will be there. I know Erin will be there to represent the system plan. I hope to see many of you there as well. This week, we are going to interview a candidate for the Planning and Development Division Director position, my previous position. So look forward to see if that is a good fit for the candidate. Stay tuned on that. Concord, construction is well underway. If you have walked or driven past Concord, you'll see that we have a lot of earth that's moved and the roof is partially torn off of the Concord building. And actually, because of that, the general contractor has asked that staff relocate to other facilities. So we've done that. We're going in there infrequently to get equipment and things like that, but we are no longer working remotely out of there anymore. So we expect to be back in that building while some renovation is still occurring, probably by November or December of this year. And I want to note that we have a new opening target, which is fall of 2025. We've been saying summer. We need to go through a punch list process to complete our construction. So really, by the time that we want to invite the public into that building, it will be fall of 2025. So I just want to update you all. We have new signage that will be posted on the construction fencing, which I think will generate some excitement, clarify the opening timeline, and really tell people in the community what's happening there. So look for that in the next few weeks. Joel mentioned the mural unveiling on June 25th at the Milwaukee Community Center. Thanks for mentioning that. I will be there. And I think we have an image. Is it okay? Okay.
Teaser, yeah.
A teaser.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's a news at 11. I hope you all come to the unveiling so you can see the full mural. Some more good news. We are updating our website. Thank you to Melina for doing that work. She's leading that effort. If you've been on our website, you can tell it needs to be refreshed in many different ways. And so this work is really timely. And also we want to hear from you. And we will build stakeholder input into the process so that the website is more responsive to the needs of district residents. So stay tuned for that work. We will send out a community survey to gather feedback, but that will be in August because right now we have another survey out for the system plan, which I will talk about in just a minute. So we have sent postcards to 3,200 residents in the community for the statistically valid survey. And then we are also asking all district residents and folks that we interact with at different events within the community to participate in the online survey. And it's going well, but we really do need more participation. So please tell your friends and neighbors to get online and participate in that survey. Is there anything else, Erin, that you'd like to add?
A couple quick notes along those lines. We will be sending out a digital project toolkit to you all, either later today or tomorrow, very soon, that has any sort of social media graphics you might want to have to be able to post, and some text that you can customize and just copy paste to be able to easily send things out digitally. We also have here in the back of the room, if you're interested, a huge stack of flyers. If you're more of a physical pass the flyers out type of a person, we have those. As well as yard signs, if you want to deck out your yard, we have those as well for you to be able to put out and just help us spread the word about the system plan survey.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you to Erin and Summer and all of the NCPRD staff and those of you that are community navigators for getting out there and tabling at events and talking to your friends and neighbors. It's working. We just need to continue to maintain that momentum. As promised, I also want to provide you all with a Milwaukee Bay Park grant update. I gathered all of the information, talked to staff. We've been conversing with grant partners, as I mentioned before, for the last several months. So here is the update, and Ally, I know you're with us tonight, so let's look for questions from Ally, because I know she expressed interest in this before, since she's online tonight. So, as I mentioned, NCPRD staff we've been keeping our grant partners informed about the process of this project. And, what we promised them is that we're going to provide them with another kind of official update in July. So, so that's where we are in terms of our communications with our grant partners. And something that we are hearing from them is, we support the project. We want you to spend the money, and if you can't spend the money because the project is still on hold, we welcome you back for another grant application cycle. So this has in no way tarnished our relationships with these grant partners. We have 3 key grants. The first grant, the Metro grant, is for $658,027. So it's just a little over, I'm gonna say almost 660,000. And we really need to work on an IGA detailing the plan for tribal engagement, which needs to be executed by September of 2024. So if we want to meet that timeline, we think that we need to begin that work no later than August 1. Our second grant is through the Oregon Parks and Recreation Local Government Grant Program, and that's for $750,000. And the detail there is, if project delay continues beyond July of this year, a future grant request will be welcomed, as I mentioned, not guaranteed. They can't guarantee it because they don't know what other applications they will receive. But grant submittals are due annually each year, April 1. So if that project delay continues, then we may want to look at resubmitting next April, but they are not pulling those funds, but we will provide an update to them in July. Third grant. So this is the most, I would say this grant is the most challenging in terms of our current timeline. It's the Land and Water Conservation Grant. It's a federal grant. It's for a little over $1 million, and the project closeout is required by October 2026. So it means that we need to be through design, completely through construction, completely through all of the punch list, and receive an inspection by October of 2026. So drawings right now for that project are 50% complete. And you know, since we haven't worked on that project for a couple of years now, I would say that we really do need to update that cost estimate too. That's another major task. And then we also need to bid the project through our public bidding process and get permits. So you can see that timeline is a little bit tight. Now, having said that, we are also having other conversations, and NCPRD staff, I should say, is also having other conversations with grant partners elsewhere about other opportunities for this project. So if 1 or 2 or more of those grants can't be maintained or can't be secured in the future, we're looking to other ideas for other pots of money elsewhere. Any questions about that? I know that was a lot. And I can send this information out if that's helpful.
And this tape will go up online, so
That's
people
right.
who aren't here can watch and catch
That's
up
right.
for themselves, right?
Yeah, but I'm happy to send out my notes too, if that's helpful. So let me know. No questions, okay?
Actually, I have a question about the Concord project. There's 3 pieces of that. It's playground, parking lot area and all that. There's a library and there's Concord. Is it some local neighbors who have kids, you know, have their kids play in that area? They have the playground area, they have the field, you know, they walk their dogs. It's all fenced off. They can't do that any longer. So will there be a partial, I won't say opening, like, not like a grand opening, but we have to wait for the entire project to be finished? When will it have access for kids to at least go in there and play? It's been kind of like the question I've been getting.
Yeah, so great question. I'm gonna say the latest would be that fall 2025, because, and it could be earlier. We might be able to open portions of the site, like the inclusive playground, because we're not seeding it. And because it's adjacent to hardscape. It's not adjacent to like the community park area, which will be kind of sensitive for a while, because it will be, fresh turf, if you will. We might be able to open up some of those areas sooner. So we'll look at that as a team to see if that's possible. But I would say right now, our working timeline is for opening to the public fall 2025.
Yeah.
But great point. I am sensitive to that, and I'm sure people are anxious to get in. We also just have to be mindful that an active construction site can continue to be kind of a dangerous place. So I'm a little hesitant, but if there's a way for us to do it, we'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Ally has your hands up.
Yeah, I'm not putting my camera on because I don't want to subject you all to what I look like at the moment, but I do just want to, it took me a little second to kind of process what you were sharing, Director Kia, about the grants. And I just want to make sure I understand. When you said it was the second grant, you said that there we needed to be progress made by July 1st. You mean in like 3 weeks, July 1st? Otherwise, we would need to resubmit for a grant proposal, and we would lose the funding that is secured currently. Is that correct?
So I'm happy to clarify, Ally. So if project delay continues beyond the month of July, then we'll need to talk about whether we need to pursue a new application in their new cycle, which starts annually each April. That's really going to be a conversation between staff and between the grant agency. In this case, it's Oregon Parks and Recreation. Because it's their program, and the way I look at it is their job is to get money out the door. And so I think that they're anxious to get the money spent so that it can be useful to other organizations in the current year. But they haven't told us that they're pulling the money. I want to be really clear about that. It's just our next check-in is in July. So I'm just being
When
really
you say-
transparent.
I appreciate that. And so when you say the end of July, you mean July 31?
Yeah, we're just going to talk to them in the month of July. So yeah, July 31 that's as good a date as any.
I mean, I appreciate the work that you've done on this, and I appreciate your transparency and updating all of us. I do just want to air my frustration, as I'm sure many are feeling frustrated, especially because we are a part of the Parks and Rec district. So we're in the business of building parks. We already had an entire employee dedicated to getting grant funding for this park years ago through Heather Cook, and she was a fantastic employee. Very sad to have her leave us, and her presence is sorely missed. But it just seems a little silly to me that if we have the funding secured. I know that there's a lot of moving parts. I know that there are a lot of factors. I was just rewatching the video from March 26, 2022, I believe, when and I just reread all of the documents between Milwaukee Bay Park and NCPRD, the IGAs that were provided. I just read the IGA that was recommended a couple years ago. So I know that there are other factors that are in play as to like what's preventing us from moving forward. But I can say without a doubt that many are very frustrated with the fact that we are here now, that we are at a point where we're talking about having to resubmit grant applications for the possibility of getting funding again when we have the funding secured now. And so I know I am frustrated. I'm not directing this towards anyone. I hope people know I'm just really frustrated with the situation. And I'm quite frankly, I'm exhausted and tired about the situation, not moving or making any sort of gains, whether that's moving forward or back. A decision hasn't been made. This has been tabled. And I just am so saddened that we are facing the conversation is, if we don't spend the money, we're going to have to apply again. And that means more time, more resources with an already limited staff. And when we have the money in our hands. So that's my little soapbox. I will step off now, but I just really urge that we need to really come together on this, because it's not okay for NCPRD, for the unincorporated areas, for Milwaukee. This is a really sad situation that we're all in. We're supposed to be better together. That's what I hear, but we're not together on this. And that's really heartbreaking for me.
Thank you, Ally. I'm gonna call on myself. I echo your frustration with this situation. I also have a strong frustration that this situation of austerity that we have is what kind of pits us against each other in a way. It's not intended. We wanted to have representation in our sub areas. We wanted to make sure that, you know, we had folks to come to our advisory committee from different parts of our district. My recollection is that Milwaukee Bay was a phased project. And I'm also cognizant that there are places where we've had land as part of the district and for quite some time, and unfortunately, nothing's been built there too, thinking about the Justice property. And I don't like being in a position, Ally, where I think about, well, what about this sub area, or what about that sub area? You're right, we are better when we're together. It is really unfortunate. And I hope that whatever gears need to turn to get us to the next place, or to a firm decision point, I hope that can happen. I'll wrap it up there. Calling in Missouri.
Is it possible to take the money, the 2.4 roughly million that's allocated or that's in grants, and start the project, you know? I'm trying to just think the frustration, if the project's gonna cost 15 million, but we only have 2.4, could we downsize it and just start and work in like little Lego blocks and build out, just so the money doesn't disappear? I don't know how any of this works. I'm just trying to think, how could we show progress? It's a constant thing when I talk to just people. They're like, oh yeah, what happens there? And I'm like, well, that's a good. Have you seen the grass today? It is green. So it's, yeah, what are we doing if we're not going towards what Grover's saying, local control, so we can have the ability to make the decisions and not be in situations like this, hopefully. That's it.
Oh, Ally raised her hand.
I want to acknowledge that we're at 7:01, and I'm sorry for losing track of the time. As chair, I should have tracked that. So I'll call on Ally, and then I think we should probably move to public comment.
Well, I just wanted to answer Musiri, because I have asked that exact question in our Parks and Rec Board meetings about, can we just like start phases of the project? And from my understanding, and I'm sure somebody at NCPRD will have a much better or accurate answer, but from my understanding, the funding was built on like matching, and if it was built on contingency of like, we'll give you this grant if you do this, and so it's hard to separate those funds out and do it in a phased way. Is that correct? Does that make sense? I'm definitely going to defer to NCPRD staff, because that was my understanding, and you know, I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking.
So that's part of it, and I don't want to delay this conversation, but I think that we should probably add this to a future agenda or have some offline conversations, because I think it might take us more time. I want to be respectful of what time it is. So Chair, I'll defer to you.
yes, we should add this to a future agenda item. And conclude the topic for now. And that brings us to public comment. So I'll ask if there's any folks, first in person that are here to give public comment or testimony.
Which chair?
If you please share your name and if you're in district and which sub areas.
My name is Thelma Hagan Miller, and I'm in district. Sub-district two. But what I'm going to bring up basically is in sub-area 1. On May 31st, I received an email from somebody in sub-district 1 who said, has anyone ever mapped or otherwise recorded the native plants along the trolley trail? I would include trees and plants and shrubs and anything else that might be in that category. And I answered saying I didn't know if anyone had when Metro first laid out the information on the trolley trail, so I referred her to a couple of different people. What has come back, there's like 5 pages of conversation going back and forth. She contacted the Oak Grove Garden Club and asked them if anyone, if there was a mapping project, would any of them be interested in getting involved in it? So that part went back and forth. And then she wrote recently, the idea is to have the making of markers for these plants as an activity at the Jennings Lodge potluck concert and later, and then place the markers along the trolley trail, which could be a separate event done in coordination with the Parks District. We are looking at all kinds of ways to get people engaged in something. And oh, by the way, meet other residents in the community. In the past, people go through the potluck buffet at the event in Jennings Lodge, sit and watch and listen to the music and only talk to people they came with. We want to engage people and build community. So I know you don't have any projects on your list of things to do, but mapping the plants that are and trees that she says and other things that are on the trail, and from what I'm hearing, the native stuff on the trail, and then placing markers on the trail beside it so trail users could then know what is along the trail. So just thought I'd open it up to you guys and let you know that you have another project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thelma.
Sure.
Do we have any folks on Zoom? Thank you so much. I'll briefly say that sounds like a wonderful project for a scout to take on, or a community group, especially a teenager who could learn from folks who would be willing to share their expertise. So for future dates, the July agenda submission for DAC meeting is Wednesday, the 19th. Ask for those by 5 p.m. or at the end of this meeting. We finalized the agenda on the 24th. Our next DAC meeting will be on Wednesday, July the 10th. It'll be here and online. And we will have the agenda topics of election for the DAC chair and vice chair and as discussed, we'll look at the bylaws as well. And a reminder again that the 30th anniversary for the aquatic park is on the 15th. And I would like to take this moment to say thank you again to Maureen for representing your sub area, for all of your hard work.
My pleasure.
Thank you. This is on behalf of NCPRD.
Some swag.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys are wonderful.
I am a winner.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, true leader. Thank you.
Appreciate your service. With that, I will gavel us out. Thank you so much.
Yay. All right, so
Madam Chair.
the board was supposed to meet at the end of the month, but I see that's been changed